Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing the Shadows over Innistrad Remastered Arena Open Day 2, Draft Number 1. This is an incredibly competitive event on Arena. You get into this by getting a 7-win run during the Arena Open Day 1. It's going to be a best 2 out of 3 draft event. We'll be playing 4 rounds with whatever deck that we draft, and if we can win 3 or 4 rounds, then we will gain qualification for the Arena Open Day 2, Draft Number 2, and that is the draft with cash prizes on the line. So ideally, we're trying to get 3 or 4 wins here, but since I did get into Day 2 off of just 1 run, we're already breaking even on gems, and if we win just a round or 2, we can be leaving with a nice amount of pity gems. So pretty excited about this event. I've been liking the Shadows over Innistrad Remastered format a lot, and this should be a fun time no matter what happens. Can't feel too bad even if we like 0-4, because again we'll be up in gems since we managed to just one and done into the events. But I'm going to be playing to the best of my ability, hopefully being able to at least take a peek at the Arena Open Day 2 Draft Number 2. So without further ado, let's bust open these packs and see where the cards take us today. Alright, here we are for pack 1, pick 1 here. Not a phenomenal pack. I'm not a big fan of the rare or any of the uncommons. We do have an excellent removal spell at common that allows us to completely cut red out of the pack, which is a pretty good signal to the left. It is one of the strongest cards in the pack by quite a bit. It probably just is the best card. There's Forbidden Alchemy for blue-black delirium sort of stuff, Dragoon for madness, a Guardian Priest for a tapper, but really not a fan of these uncommons. Biting Rain's okay, again in those delirium, slower, grindy decks. You can do a ton of self-mill and try to do Rise from the Grave things, but that seems a little too cute for me in a very competitive event like this, and Tamiyo's Journal is just far too slow. I think we'll just take the premium mono-colored removal spell out of the pack. Alright, pack 1, pick 2. No red cards to follow up Incendiary Flow. Tormenting Voice can be playable at times, but I don't think it's really good enough to pack 1, pick 2 here. This pack is also not the strongest pack ever. If I want to just force blue-red spells, I could take Inventory here. Well, I could take Inventory. That's a bit of a weird way to say it, but I could do that towards blue-red spells. Alternatively, Spider Spawning is the highest payoff card in the pack if we do end up in a green-black delirium self-mill strategy. This card is bonkers. It can be a great way to keep yourself alive pretty easily, and it can also just turn into a win condition really late in the game when you've milled most of your library. If we take Spider Spawning, we'd be wanting to wheel the Epitaph Golem. Those two cards fit really well into a self-mill deck, the Epitaph Golem making it so if you ever mill your entire library, instead of losing the game, you'll basically win the game because all of a sudden you just get to set up exactly what you want to draw whenever you want to draw it. So I'll take the Spider Spawning here and potentially wheel Epitaph Golem if we start going down the Spider Spawning direction. Now, we're not married to that. We are still open to doing any kind of regular aggro deck with an Incendiary Flow out of red. Yeah, don't want to get super tied to anything this early. And this pack is also not the strongest. You will definitely notice that at higher level, more competitive draft pods, the packs get a lot more empty a lot quicker. In just an average premier draft where just everyone on Arena is drafting, you're going to find a lot more playables a lot more often, but things can dry up really fast in these competitive draft pods. There's a Jace's Scrutiny for a combat trick out of blue that can win a combat, give you a clue. Weirding Wood could work with Spider Spawning for a grindier kind of deck that wants a lot of clue tokens and wants mana fixing. Blood Mad Vampire is an okay card to go with the Incendiary Flow, but there's nothing super exciting here. Scrutiny, Weirding Wood, Blood Mad Vampire, I guess, are the main options. I think I go for the Weirding Wood for grindier strategies. I think it's less replaceable than Blood Mad is. Blood Mad's pretty replaceable for red aggro decks. Now we have a Spontaneous Mutation for any slower blue deck. It's not good in any deck that wants to be aggressive because you're going to be leaving the creature on the board for your opponent to block with, but if you're a very defensive deck that's just trying to grind out the game, this will functionally just kill anything later in the game. There's another Epitaph Golem. There's also a Wildfield Scarecrow, which can fill our graveyard with creatures for Spider Spawning, mana fix us for any kind of 3-color shenanigans, and fill out our Delirium. For any Delirium payoffs, those are cards that want 4 different card types in your grave, excuse me. I could also just take Rabid Bite here and just be a generic red-green aggro deck right now. I think I do take this Wildfield Scarecrow though, because it's very, very good with Spider Spawning with any Delirium payoffs. And now we see a Kindly Stranger towards green-black Delirium. 3 mana for a 2/3, but if you can get Delirium consistently, this is also a removal spell on a stick. 3 mana to blow up any creature and flip it into a 4/3. So I think we'll be taking Kindly Stranger here. Another thing that's quite nice about the card is it's a potential removal spell off of a creature, which means that we get to have a removal spell in our deck while keeping our creature count higher for a card like Spider Spawning, so I'm going to take that there. Doesn't look like a lot of good red cards are getting passed to us, so this Incendiary Flow, pick one, pack one, does not look like it's panning out. There is a Rise from the Tides pick 6 though, which is a pretty big sign for the blue-based spells deck, so if we manage to get blue-red spells, but I think that'd be pretty difficult with the lack of red spells that we're seeing. And it doesn't synergize well with a deck with Spider Spawning, because these decks want a high amount of different kinds of cards. This one's all instant sorceries, this one's all creatures. And I think our other cards are going to function a lot better for a Spider Spawning deck than a Rise from the Tides deck. So as cool as that is, as much of a sign as it is to see that pick 6, that means we could do like a blue-based spell deck, but I don't think that we could do blue-red spells, because there's just not a lot of red cards here. I took the Wretched Gryff here because it's pretty good for the blue-green-black Delirium deck if we go for Sultai. Play all 3 colors. We already have 2 pieces of mana fixing for that strategy, Weirding Wood and Wildfield Scarecrow. And now we do get a pick 7 Forbidden Alchemy, which is a great card for that strategy, filling out the graveyard pretty quickly while drawing us into what we need, and being a 2-for-1 value spell with that flashback. Not a big fan of Imprisoned in the Moon as removal, since it does turn the creature into a land, which can be valuable if you use it early in the game. Byway Courier is also solid here. Maybe take it over Alchemy? I think I'd rather take Alchemy, but Byway Courier would be great as well. This is a pretty easy Gnarlwood Dryad now. 1 mana, 1/1 Death Toucher is just already limited playable, and if you hit that Delirium, 1 mana for a 3/3 Death Toucher is pretty absurd. Happy to take that. There is a Make Mischief for blue-red spells, so that's kind of a thing, but I'm gonna expect to see like 0 red cards for the rest of this. Apparatus does put an artifact in our graveyard for Delirium, but it's one of the worst artifacts to play. I think I'd rather just speculate on an Intrepid Provisioner. If we end up getting pushed to green-white aggro or something weird, I just really don't like Explosive Apparatus. We do wheel the Epitaph Golem so that if we do mill our entire library by using cards like Forbidden Alchemy, we can make sure that we don't mill out. Not only that, but we can set up our draws and always have the strongest card in our grave on top of our library every turn. So we'll take that. There's nothing really good here. I'm probably just going to take Thornhide Wolves. I don't think I want to go all in on like Rise from the Grave levels of Self-Mill. Take the Thornhide Wolves. It's a solid filler creature. Crow of Dark Tidings is a fine way to mill ourselves. It's not great. True Faith Sensor and Strength of Arms are both good for the green-white humans aggro deck, though. So we could speculate in that direction, but I feel like we're pretty far deep into solid self-mill stuff. So I'll take that Crow of Dark Tidings there. Really not a fan of the Reaper. I'll take Strength of Arms. It's a Guardian Priest. Well, maybe Moonlight Hunt is more likely. Got 1 wolf right now and an Incendiary Flow. So if we like open up a green-red rare wolf, we might try to play that. Open up 2 rares here because we opened up a double-faced rare and a normal rare. There's Collective Defiance for an excellent removal spell, or Bruna for a massive, massive finisher. 7 mana for a 5/7 Flying Vigilance. Return an angel or human from your graveyard to the battlefield when you cast her. Don't have any playable white cards yet, but that is a huge reason to try to be green-black-white instead of green-black-blue. Yeah, that's a massive finisher. 5/7 Flying Vigilance plus reanimate another creature. if we have a human in the graveyard. Having an angel in the graveyard would be pretty difficult, but there are a good amount of humans in the format we could draft. I'm going to take Bruna here. Card seems absurd. Get past a second harvest, which doesn't really do anything. I think we take a byway courier here. Solid creature to trade off throughout the game, giving us that clue token to keep drawing, and it's also a human to make Bruna a bit better. I think I will take byway courier. Another incendiary flow in red. Apothecary Geist is good if you have a lot of spirits, but we won't. Another Wildfield Scarecrow and Epitaph Golem are cool, but not really necessary to take this early when we already have one copy of each. Take that byway courier. Very happily take a Deathcap Cultivator, I think. Really, really nice mana fixing, and it can be a Death Toucher once we have Delirium, which means it can trade up into like an Arsonist that's attacking us late game. So it gives us that mana fixing, and the mana ramp in the early game turns into a creature big enough to trade into anything later in the game. So I like Deathcap Cultivator a lot. We are passing up Bound by Moonsilver to take it, which is a little sad because that is a pretty great removal spell, but I think it's worth it. Also Obsessive Skinner. Wow. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Everything's kind of clumped up in this pack. A bunch of good stuff. Yeah, even if we weren't in black, just a 2-mana, 2/1 Mana Dork is good. Especially with the Delirium payoff later. I'm going to take the Cultivator here. Rough to see all three of those in one pack because they're all phenomenal. Divine Reckoning can be really good in the right matchup. Each player chooses one creature they control and destroy the rest, so you change the board state into each player just having their best creature on board. So if our opponent is really aggressive and they're just playing a bunch of smaller creatures, then this will be pretty good for us. Like, we're likely to have one big creature later in the game, so I think Divine Reckoning is actually kind of sweet for our grindier deck alongside like Bruna as another potential win condition. Ironclad Slayer could be good if we pick up a lot of copies of Deadweight. That is a 1-mana aura to give something -2/-2. The Slayer can pick that up and we can get another removal spell out of it. Could also take Biting Rain here against the aggro decks. These are best 2 out of 3 drafts, so we get to sideboard our board wipes in and out depending on what we're playing against. We don't have any auras or equipment yet for Ironclad Slayer. I guess I have one Weirding Wood, but it's not the most exciting. I think I actually will take Biting Rain, or even Knot of the Bone. Take the Biting Rain. Vessel of Nascency is a massive pickup for us. Huge self-mill, and it fills Delirium incredibly well by putting an enchantment into our graveyard, so I'm very happy to take a Vessel of Nascency. Again, I'm taking it over the removal, which is Bound by Moonsilver. Seeing Bound by Moonsilver this late, maybe we push into just straight up green-white. I mean, we've got 12 cards already for just straight green-white, taking Bound by Moonsilver. But Vessel of Nascency, not good in green-white, but definitely playable, so it would still work there. Alright, and there's no white card in this pack. This pack just looks pretty much unplayable for everybody, except for a Black Madness deck with Dragoon and Vampire. I guess we just take Briarbridge Patrol. Dragoon's an okay way to discard a land to fill out Delirium, but rather take a green card because green's the only color that we're 100% set on. There's a Griff's Boon in white. That is pretty dang late. +1/+0 flying. You can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield for 4 later, turning any creature into a big finisher. Probably better than Groundskeeper. Graph Rats is just really bad. Resolve's not great either. Maybe Cultist is the best pick there for green-blue, but again with Bruna I'm leaning more on the white than the blue, and we get a Travel Preparations pack 2, pick 9. Alright, try to take some aggressive cards in the last pack, hopefully. Just as many green and white aggro humans as possible. We get a Travel Preparations that late. It's going to be a rough pivot though, because most of our deck is way better grinding out a long game than it is being aggressive, so we need to find a lot of aggro cards. Fiendbinder is an aggro card, it's a pretty filler one, but fits that archetype nonetheless. Same with Dawngryff, Guardian of Pilgrims. Not going to have a wide enough board state for Borrowed Grace to be exciting. We might be like green-white aggro splash black for a spider spawning flashback. Like even if we don't run a lot of self-mill, cards like spider spawning can still be good if you have like 17 creatures in your deck, if you just have a high creature count in general. Abundant Maw is not unplayable. Pack 3, pick one. What have we got? Probably Hinterland Logger. Get some more early game creatures to get aggressive. So we're trying to potentially head in that direction. Those are all basically creatures. Those are all basically creatures. Okay. So Guardian Priest might be better. They're really close. Logger's better at attacking, obviously, with higher power, but Priest is more useful defensively. We don't have a lot of good defensive cards, but like Travel Prep now, heading to green-white. I think I'm trying to get aggro. I'm going to take Hinterland Logger. This pack is empty for us. Wow. Yeah, there's like a Weirding Wood if I'm still on the 3-color grinded out deck. Scrutiny, Laboratory Brute, Silent Departure for blue. Double Wildfield Scarecrow. We could just splash every color under the sun. Play the Silent Departure here. Yeah, I'm going to speculate on Silent Departure for the grindy multicolored self-mill deck because there is nothing in this pack for green-white aggro. Okay, there's a green-white aggro card here. Also a removal spell that I'm really low on. We'll just take a Rabid Bite, probably. Over the Veteran Cathar. That'll fit into whatever direction the deck heads in. Take a Rabid Bite. That is so awkward to open up multiple Stromkirk Condemns. So whoever's in black-red vampires just gets paid off by RNG. Yeah, that means there's nothing great here. Probably just take a Devilthorn Fox, maybe even a Faithbearer Paladin, so I can recover us later game. I think I'd rather just have more early game blockers. Another travel preparations. No respect. No respect for the travel prep. So not what we're doing if we're grinding out the 3-4 color build, but the card is so powerful that it would be worth playing some more mediocre creatures to head to an aggro travel prep build. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There'll be 3 cards left. There should be 0 chance that this comes back with only 3 cards, but Gnarlwood Dryad's just going to be good in green-white or in the 4-color grinded out deck. So it's just a way safer pick. We don't have enough Wolves and Werewolves for Hellpack Resurgence. We probably take another copy of Hinterland Logger now. Rogskull Shieldmate is fine for the green-white aggro. And Burial Rites is fine for the more self-milly deck. But we're starting to get enough creatures to maybe go for that Travel Prep aggro build. Which is really tempting, and I think I'd rather go towards that than the Unburial Rites build. Now we get a Bound by Moonsilver for removal for either strategy. Field Creeper 2-mana 2/1 is obviously not what you want, but I think it's better than Swift Spinner or Morkrut Necropod. Just fills out the curve and gives us Delirium. Probably gets cut, but we'll see. Druidney's probably the best card in this pack, but I think blue is going to be a really tiny splash, so I'll just take Swift Spinner if we do the 4-color build. Actually probably do hit Delirium often, even if we are the green-white build, so I'm going to go for Reaper over a second Epitaph Golem. Another Reaper. We'll see when we wield the travel prep. Okay. Yeah. That's why I kept taking mostly green and white cards there, is because, like, then if we wheel travel prep, we can try to just be green-white. And if we don't wheel it, we can still do that backup mid-range self-mill grindy deck. Double travel prep can convince me to run 2 mana 2/1s with no text in order to get aggressive with the card. Yeah, so what are we looking at here if we stick to just green-white? Green-white aggro delirium. We definitely want at least a black splash for the spider spawning. But we actually have 51 cards here. So we get to cut 11 cards of our choice. I don't have to play all of the worst cards. I feel like Divine Reckoning's probably not good in the green-white list. Moonlight Hunt's definitely not. Strength of Arms could be just an okay combat trick. What is our creature count? 22, so I do get to cut like 5 creatures. I feel like Spinners are worst 4-drop, Golems are worst 5-drop. We just run Terrarium and a Swamp for spider spawning, rather than Scarecrow, because it's so slow when you're trying to be aggro. Like, we have Cultivator, Terrarian, 1 Swamp for the flashback on spawning. We can still play the front half. Again, if we have 17 creatures in the deck, we don't need that much self-mill to make it pop off, and we're going to have a Vessel of Nascency still. Pretty sure we're running that in here with double Reaper Flight. Yeah, we're definitely cutting Moonlight Hunt, and maybe we keep the Weirding Wood to also splash in the spider spawning. But the thing is, we're never going to be in a position where we can't cast our spells because of not hitting our splash mana, because the only thing that our splash mana is doing is getting the flashback ability of spider spawning. So I really don't think we need to work that hard on the black splash. So I feel like I'm just not going to run Weirding Wood. Divine Reckoning is going to be a sideboard piece if we just have stronger creatures than them, because I don't think that's going to be like every matchup. There'll be a lot of matchups against other grindier decks that Divine Reckoning is just going to be bad against. Since we didn't end up being the grindy deck, we ended up more aggressive here. So 4 cuts to go. You sort all these non-creatures out. 2 card types here for Delirium. So we have 3 enchantments, 1 instant, 4 sorceries. I'd love to cut a sorcery over anything else, but all of our sorceries are pretty important. I mean, if anything, spider spawning, but I feel like we want to leave that in here. I could maybe even just not run a swamp and just have Terrarian and Cultivator, because Terrarian's still kind of sticking in here for Delirium, for the double Gnarlwood Dryad, the Deathcap Cultivator, the double Reaper Flight Moonsilver. Oh, these are angels as well, which means we can pick them up with Bruna. That's kind of cool. It's kind of a little bonus there. What's our human count at? Very nice. All right, so Bruna's pretty much always going to bring something back. I mean, Strength of Arms is not a human, but everything else there. I don't really want to cut any lands with a really powerful 7-mana spell like we have. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everything we cut so far is just definitely correct. But 4 more cuts to go. Alright, even though it's going to make getting Delirium harder, I think I'm going to cut the 1 random combat trick. We've got no equipments in here, so it's just going to be +2/+2, which is still a fine combat trick, but we have just so many better non-creature cards in my opinion. I think all of our other non-creature cards are better in this deck. I could just stop trying to go after Delirium and get fully on the aggro train and drop Vessel, Terrarian, and Field Creeper. That would up the generic card quality of our deck, but make our Delirium cards worse. That might be the simplest way to build this deck. Also maybe cut a Reaper of Flight, because they're going to be a lot worse without the Delirium, and they'll hit it less consistently without Terrarian Field Creeper. Adding to the artifact count. But I think Vessel's like a decent draw spell regardless, because it also fills the grave and digs towards that Bruna. But we do look like we just want to go after a generic aggro curve. Yeah, in the right matchup, we can always sideboard back in to a more Delirium heavy build. And we'll just start off, get that ball rolling in game one, trying to just aggro out our opponent, hoping that they're on one of the grindier decks. And then if that plan doesn't work out, we can kind of swap plans a bit in the sideboard. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Alright. I think that's going to be the deck. Alright, here's a look at the final deck we're going to be playing today. A very, very average, I would even say mediocre, green-white aggro build. Not as high quality as we would want to have in a really competitive event like this, but that's just kind of how these things tend to go. You're going to be in really competitive draft pods where the card quality dries up quickly, so most of the decks are going to look pretty mediocre, pretty average or slightly below average like this one. So we've got a good curve of creatures, which is the most important thing for playing an aggressive deck like this. We definitely have some creatures that are more filler and just less high quality than I would want, like Fiendbinder, Dawngryph, Devilthorn Fox. These are all just a bit below average. Reaper of Flight, Moonsilver as well, without a lot of ways to help with the Delirium. A lot of below average creatures, but we've got a good curve of them alongside some great spells to back them up, and the really powerful Bruna to potentially end the game. We do have an Angel and a lot of humans in the deck, so we should almost always be able to reanimate something when we cast our Bruna late in the game. We've got a decently high creature count as well, which makes spider spawning a potential finisher later in the game. We also have a couple black sources in the deck for it, just one Deathcap Cultivator and one Swamp, because again, we're never going to be stuck unable to cast the spider spawning. We just might not be able to flash it back, so it'll always do at least something, even if we don't hit that black source very often, so we don't really need too many black sources in the deck. Couple pieces of removal with Rabid Bite and Bound by Moonsilver, Strength of Arms to try to win a combat, and use it as kind of a removal spell mid-combat. And then 2 Travel Preparations, the biggest card, to try to just win the game really quickly on curve. Just dump out a bunch of creatures, dump counters on them really quickly, beat our opponent down. Gryff's Boon as well to turn any non-flyers into flyers, and we can do that over and over again to try to chip in the sky and get some unblockable threats. So that is the generic game plan that we're going to be going for in game one. Just try to aggro people out while they are hopefully a little unprepared for that sort of matchup. And then depending on the matchup we get into, we have quite the sideboard here. We were going after a potential Sultai or Abzan Delirium deck, so we can definitely swap into your more average deck in this format, which is a much grindier kind of 3-color pile with more self-mill and Delirium payoffs. 2 Wildfield Scarecrows, Terrarian to fill the graveyard with artifacts and creatures and mana fix us, Epitaph Golem if we ever get to the point where we might mill out, Vessel of Nascency to fill that graveyard, dig for whatever we need. Cards like Kindly Stranger get really good when we have Delirium payoffs. Forbidden Alchemy can fill the grave, Silent Departure can flashback, Alchemy can flashback if we mill them, so a lot of grindier 3-color options when we get to sideboarding. But this is going to be the main deck. This is what we're going for now. Without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. Here we are for game one. We did win the coin flip. We get to choose to play first for the first game, and I will keep this hand. We get to curve out 2, 3, 4, and if our creatures end up dying quite a bit, we'll have a nice spider spawning to potentially be a finisher. Opponent takes a mulligan, and they're going to keep the 6-card hand. They are on the draw, so it shouldn't be too painful to just have 1 mulligan there. They're going to start with a turn 1 Topplegeist, which unfortunately my Devilthorn Fox will trade into, but it's not the worst trade in the universe. Oh, never mind, Lunarch Mantle from our opponent to turn that into a 3/3 flyer. love to just keep curving out aggressively, but just a 2/2 flyer is not that big, and Bound by Moonsilver on Topplegeist feels pretty dang good, because until they have Delirium, we're getting a 2-for-1 off of Bound by Moonsilver by killing their Topplegeist and their Lunarch Mantle here. And if they ever do get Delirium or play any better threats, then we can go ahead and sacrifice a land to move the Bound by Moonsilver over to a different threat. But for now, just dealing with a 3/3 flyer seems important, and our opponent's going to do the same. They're just going to deal with their 3/1 on the ground. Now we've drawn Rabid Bite, so we have another removal spell for their next threat. As long as it has 3 or less toughness, we can shoot it with our Devilthorn Fox. They are still on mono white for now. Alright, let's get some damage in. Send in for 2, slam down a 2/3 with Flash during their end step. Thraben Inspector, that is an excellent, excellent card. They're going to get a 1/2 onto the board and draw a card off of the Clue token. Play another land for turn and slap a Gryff's Boon onto the Thraben Inspector. That is a little unfortunate, because I would love to be able to pacify that instead of kill it, because if I kill it, then the Gryff's Boon's going to go in their grave and they can put it on something else. You know what I could do here? Actually, this might be fancy play syndrome, but I think we actually have a sweet line here. The plan is going to be to draw Skull Shieldmate during the end step, just as you do in general. But the way that Bound by Moonsilver works is that I could move my... this isn't going to work how I want it to, because I won't have a 3-power creature on board anymore. Theoretically, I can move my Bound by Moonsilver by sacrificing the Devilthorn Fox, and then they can never move their Bound by Moonsilver. The problem with doing that is if I sack this Devilthorn Fox, I no longer have a 3-power creature on board to Rabid Bite the Topplegeist. That is really awkward. Just attack with a 2/3 here then, or do I trade into the Inspector? Got no way to play a 3-power creature here either to set up that Rabid Bite play in the future. Could just kill the Inspector, hit for 4, put them to 11. I think I'd rather just play Deathcap Cultivator here. Now, if they end up sacking their Topplegeist to move the Bound by Moonsilver over, then I can never move mine. This is weird little sacrifice war. Faith Unbroken. Well, that's horrific. Yep. That's super horrific. I guess I can Rabid Bite the Topplegeist with a Fiendbinder if this doesn't end up dying. So we probably do want to go ahead and just shut off that 3-bit Inspector. Or I could wait till I have a 4-power creature on board, try to Rabid Bite 3-bit Inspector, because I would get back Deathcap Cultivator if that ends up happening. Could also 2-for-1 myself, let them kill my Dawngryff or my Shieldmate in order to Rabid Bite Inspector. Get back my thing. I think I just want to play a Fiendbinder for now. I'm just going to play a Fiendbinder for now. There's a lot of fancy little lines here, but I don't think they add up to anything incredible yet. While we're stuck on mana, if I had hit like a land every turn and I could do multiple of these things really easily, that would be phenomenal. We're straight up just against mono white aggro. Okay, Gnarlwood Dryad's a beautiful draw. Now I don't have to do anything fancy. I just Rabid Bite Inspector and go to town. Yeah, they've got a 3/2 blocker on the ground, which I can tap down with Fiendbinder and a 1/1. Yeah. I think that's where it's at. Again, we have had a lot of fancy choices we could make here, but I think this just ends up being the best. Just the simple play. Getting our card back. Sending in for a lot of damage here. Our opponent's best line is definitely going to be sacking the Topplegeist to put the Bound by Moonsilver on our Fiendbinder. So do I sack the Devilthorn Fox right now just so they can't do that? I think I'm going to do that. I could actually just sack it and put it right back on the Topplegeist anyway, so I'll just do that. Just so they can't move theirs to our Fiendbinder. Because it's not on the board anymore. Alright. Feels good. Feels good. Get a W in game one. We are against just mono white aggro, it looks like. Seems like we had a decent enough matchup there. With just green white versus mono white. We did draw both of our removal spells, which was pretty important and very helpful. So our lack of removal might make us want to splash a little deeper here. Our opponent's going to be on the play here, so being the full aggro travel prep build might get a bit weaker because they're going to be on the play being able to aggro us out sooner, so we could go like double Scarecrow Terrarian over double travel prep Strength of Arms, and then we get to play Kindly Stranger for another removal spell. Devilthorn Fox doesn't seem great against them because they have stuff like Thraben Inspector, so we could cut Devilthorn Fox as well. Play like a Biting Rain in this matchup. Play more creatures that survive -2/-2. Yeah, we probably do try to pivot into a really strong defensive build here. Still think Biting Rain hits us pretty bad. But it hits everything they played unless they put one of their auras on it. Swamp for plains, forest. If we're going for this build, probably Vessel. I should have set aside a dedicated build for the grindy deck so I don't have to think it through the whole way every time I want to pivot to it. But I do think this is a good position to do so. I don't think Reckoning is the greatest here, but it could be okay. Cut one of the loggers. Sure. Yeah. Grind your Sultai build here. On the defensive. I think it's our stronger defensive deck. I don't think this is the best build of it. I kind of slapped it together a little sloppily. This is not a great opening hand, but it has 2 creatures to trade off early. Could definitely flood out though, especially if our first draws another land. Oh, they're on black-white? They played their whole hand game one though. They never drew a black spell. So they're almost completely mono-white. Unless they pivoted to black as well. They swapped decks out here. Kindly Stranger? Maybe they did we just swap into the same decks? Opponent. Are you me? Am I you? Alright, Thraben Inspector. Yeah, they're going to Value Town here. Town Gossipmonger as well. Gnarlwood Dryad is not a bad draw. Good little Death Touch blocker. So all we really want right now is to just stay alive for a while, keep them from hitting us, just try to get to a Bruna. hit a Rabid Bite. If I Rabid Bite the Kindly Stranger, I basically shut off a removal spell from them. Probably going to be a little while before they have Delirium anyway, though. Save it for now. I think I will Rabid Bite the Kindly Stranger next turn if they don't play anything better, because we're going to want that to be off the board before we put a Bruna on it. Bound by Moonsilver on the Byway Courier. That's a problem, because now they can move a Bound by Moonsilver to Bruna. Bruna can still reanimate something from grave, so Bruna's still going to have some value. But yeah, we would love to draw our own Bound by Moonsilver to sack this courier now. Alright, let's play Patrol. Still don't need to kill Kindly Stranger, especially because now I have to deal with 2 different removal spells before I really want to play Bruna. Yikes. Yeah, we're probably going to have to Rabid Bite the Rabble then. They're going to make it a fire-breathing flyer, and have the ability to just move a Bound by Moonsilver to our Bruna. If we try to play that just to block. Angelic Purge, sack a land, makes the Stranger very close to Delirium. We do draw our own Griff's Boon. So now I could just Griff's Boon the Dryad to block the Rabble, then I'll have to also Rabid Bite Kindly Stranger most likely. And then they still have that Bound by Moonsilver they can move around. Could also just Rabid Bite the Rabble, but then they just put Boon on Inspector or Stranger and keep hitting me for 3 or 4 damage every turn regardless. I could Boon Dryad and they might end up just sacking something to move Bound to the Dryad. And I still have no blocks. At 16 life for now though. Again, I don't think it's just Bruna, then they just move that to Bruna right now. Probably is Griff's Boon Rabid Bite, but I don't love it, and I think I have to get rid of Stranger. And then force them to move the Bound over if they want to attack in with Rabble. Because alternatively they could just get 1 more card type in grave and just Stranger the Dryad. Faith Unbroken is disgusting there. Now we're down to 10. I play a Bruna, they just move Bound by Moonsilver, and I don't block Rabble. I could just make a Flying Scarecrow with Griff's Boon. Is that better than playing Bruna? No, because it's not going to have the power to kill Rabble. Yeah, if they move Bound by Moonsilver to Bruna, we have enough power to block and kill the Thraben Inspector on the ground, so they only hit us with Incited Rabble. And they ideally have to move Bound by Moonsilver to get an attack in with Rabble this turn. And they have to declare attacks with Rabble, which means they have to sack something for the Bound by Moonsilver now. Unless they're okay with letting Rabble die. They did have another Thraben Inspector to play here, though, which is really bad for us. Because now they can just sack a Clue or a 1-2, which is a lot less important to them than a land right now. Now they have some very expendable stuff to sacrifice. I guess they could have also just sacked the Griff's Boon and replayed it. That is so nasty. Yeah, Bound by Moonsilver is like the MVP of this matchup. Okay, they're going to sack the Thraben Inspector, hit us for 3 or 4 damage if they dump an extra mana into that. They choose to hit for 3. Save their mana for the clue. Another potential flying chump blocker. Throw the Griff's Boon on the Courier to try to get a trade into Rabble and get a clue token. Feels like it. Could also go for Scarecrow since it can block Inspector. Yeah, it keeps Inspector off of us, that's fine. Oh. I guess I go to 1. A Subjugator Angel. Draw a card off Terrarian. Biting Rain would do nothing this game, by the way. Oh yeah, we can't draw, it comes into play. I always forget it comes into play tapped. Well, if they have nothing, I have the blockers. If they've ran out of stuff by now. But they played a lot of Thraben Inspectors. I guess they played 2 of them. Land. Move Bound by Moonsilver to the Byway Courier. Oh, they're gonna kill Bruna with like Humble the Brute or something? Oh wow. Just the Reanimator for Faith Unbroken. That'll do it. Seems good. Well, Subjugator Angel will do that to you. I think we were starting to stabilize if they didn't have Subjugator Angel. So close. Alright. Back on the play again, we go back to green-white. Biting Rain actually looked really bad there, so I'm glad I didn't draw that. What else did I put in here? I've got another slot again for something. Oh yeah, Vessel. Yeah, I feel like this deck is just better on the play. Just curve out on them, travel, prep it up. Bound by Moonsilver, just 100% MVP of the matchup. Whoever gets the Bound by Moonsilver going is going to have a great time. That card was really, really good against us that game. Yep, ready up. Game 3, let's go. All right. 2, 3, 4. Counting with Gauntlet. Those are the plays. Slam down the humans. No Thraben Inspector one time. Yeah, no turn 1 Thraben Inspector. That's a great start for us. Steadfast Cathar on 2. Now for the trade. I'm going to be casting spells every turn for a long time. We're never going to flip that 2-1. So trade a 2-1 into a slightly better 2-1. I don't like that trade, but Intrepid Provisioner helps us still get an attack in here. They're down to 15. Kindly Stranger again. Kind of just need to play Dawngryff now. Things are getting cluttered. If I attack with both, they could trade into both, going boop, boop. We get a clue in that exchange. I think with double travel prep in the deck, I probably just don't attack into board states like this. Just wait and see. I actually don't need a Death Toucher that bad. Probably better to slam down Devilthorn Fox. We also have 2 removal spells and a Fiend Binder. Those could also help break through things like this. There's their Fiend Binder. Alright, there's a Rabid Bite now. Does that get us attacking at all? 3 3-power creatures. The only trade I don't like is the trade into Dauntless Cathar, so maybe we just shoot the Dauntless Cathar attack with everybody. But then they still do get the Cathar value. They'll get a 1/1 flyer later. Trade Fiendbinder into Provisioner, Stranger into Courier maybe. Yeah, I mean this seems fine. This seems better than playing Gnarlwood Dryad. What 1 white mana spell do they have? Oh, they have +2/+2 in their hand. They're either playing in full control or they have +2/+2 in their hand. They have +2/+2 in their hand. They block Provisioner with Stranger and kill it with that, without losing the Stranger. It's probably fine. We need to get that out of the way. And we've got 4 creatures against their 2. We got to get aggressive here. Yeah. Choose to kill Devilthorn Fox. I guess because, I mean, if they just block the other way, they'd take 0. Okay, yeah, that is still a weird choice of blocks. But not as weird as I was saying. I understand why they didn't kill Byway Courier. Because we'd get a clue there. But I guess I will take my free point of trample damage. So we're at 20, they're at 9, but they've got 3 cards and a Spirit Engrave, and all we have is a Gnarlwood Dryad in hand. One of their cards is that goddamn Faith Unbroken. Hit a land off the top. Well, Dryad can get in against the Stranger, but it can't once they play that Spirit token. Because it'll just trade into the 1/1. So they're getting a stable board state here. And top deck the Thraben Inspector. Another speed bump to try to get through that also lets them draw a card, so they are just getting far ahead in card advantage now. Reaper of Flight Moonsilver is very big. If they can hit Delirium, they can kill it, but for now they only have creatures and instants engraved. They need to find a way to get an enchantment in a land or a sorcery in a land, something like that. They're at 9 life facing a 3-power flyer that will potentially kill them in 3 attacks. What on earth is this? They already have creatures engraved, so it's not for Delirium. I don't remember anything in this format that gives them like insane value if they deal combat damage to us. All I could think of this being is like combat tricks to try to kill one of our creatures, and Byway Courier's never gonna get in, and it's just so much gas to be able to draw a card here. Okay. We'll see what it is, I guess. Macabre Waltz. They wanted to pick it up to draw another card off of it? Okay. Sure. Oh my god, and that's a sorcery and land. Even if I didn't block there, they put a sorcery and land in grave. They just pick up a Steadfast Cathar instead of Thraben Inspector. Yeah, that was only slightly better for them being able to get the Thraben Inspector instead of the Steadfast Cathar, so we're not losing because I made that block, we're losing because they had Macabre Waltz to flip Delirium. I feel like I've done everything I could in Game 2 and Game 3 here. We just do not have the tools to defeat this, or we're just not drawing them. That is way too late. Guess mine as well. I'll load up a really big Byway Courier so I can block and kill Demon Possessed Witch, so they have to tap down Byway Courier with Fiendbinder, and then I can still trade the Death Touchers off. So they don't really have attacks outside of their flyer. That's hilarious, Magic Arena. These two cards would have been exceptional in any of our first 3 or 4 turns, but they are really bad now. Yep. What can you do? Gonna start off with 1 round loss. Unfortunate stuff there. Not much to say. Our deck kind of just got outclassed there and outdrawn. Thraben Inspectors, multiple Angelic Purges, Faith Unbrokens. White was just way too open in their draft pod for us to be able to compete well. They just had a much higher card quality going into those games, with Faith Unbrokens and a bunch of Thraben Inspectors. Subjugated Angel for the free victory in the end there. I think our deck did have a shot at winning this matchup, but would have been a difficult one, and we did not draw as great as we would have needed to win the match. So, not super unhappy with how I played or how I sideboarded or anything there. I think those losses were, for the most part, just the natural outcome of those games, regardless of choices. So, start off 0-1 heading into round 2. Alright, opponent's on the play, but this is a pretty great keep. Oh, there's a Bruna for the late game as well. And against blue-green, they start off with the Ulvenwald Captive Manadork. I'm just going to start with Guardian of Pilgrims, even though I'm missing some of its value. Just to have a bigger creature to attack in, because I'm definitely going to play Byway Courier next turn if I can. Yep, they're just setting up some mana and clues, playing an Obsessive Skinner, getting a counter on the Skinner. Definitely offer the trade for that. Interesting. I actually do want to trade here, so they just want to stop early aggro stuff. Well, probably better to keep this on board and win the combat and just play a 2-1 than it is to play a Byway Courier. Because they might not even have a card to play here if they want to trade that aggressively, and then maybe the logger even flips. They probably still have a spell to play. That'd be pretty unlikely that they don't. But there is a shot. They do move to main phase 2. They do let the Hinterland logger flip. Let's go. Alright. Now we can just get attacks in with both of these. I guess we'll see what kind of combat trick or flash creature they have. Spirit of the Hunt, sure. Get a free block on the captive and beat the 2/2. Yeah, that's kind of horrendous for us. Well, we can play around that in round 2 or 3, but that is a rare, so always going to be tremendously difficult to play around the rares. No, they didn't have enough mana for the 4-mana 4/3 flash that can make a 2/2 as well. I do have a spider spawning in the hand, so I probably just keep getting in. And if they keep using a bunch of tricks and flash creatures to just wipe our whole board over and over, eventually we'll just make a bunch of spiders. They're just going to flip the captive here? Yep. Fair enough. They're down to 1 creature on board. We will get a clue token. And start chipping it in the sky. Abundant Maw. Good lord, that is bad for us. Could just immediately play some spiders. No sorcery in the grave, so if I spider spawning, we're at 3 out of 4 on Delirium, but we're not there yet. I'd probably just play a Death Toucher to block one of these things. So let's crack a clue and see if that changes anything. Thornhide Wolves, that does not change anything. So hit for 3 and play a Dryad to block one of the big beef creatures. Dryad feels very good in this matchup. They're like green-blue gigantic monsters, the deck. Wretched Griff, great. Now they have a 3/4 flyer to beat our 3/3 flyer. Well, once I spider spawning, I can block that all day. I think it's more important to set up a blocker for the 4-power creature than the 3-power creature first, so let's get our creature to block the Ovenwald Abomination, and then we'll set up the spiders to block the Wretched Griff. We stop more damage this way. Take 3 instead of 4. Cobb Waltz. Get back an Abundant Maw. And Spirit of the Stuff. Bound by Moonsilver can kill their 1 flyer. Can also get a land in our graveyard for the Reaper. This is a 5/4 when we Delirium with it. So hold on. If I can hit Delirium by sacrificing a land, I can treat my flyer as a 5/4, which can beat their flyer. They do have a Noose Constrictor for a reach creature, but they'd have to discard Spirit of the Hunt to kill my Reaper right now. I don't actually think I can attack into this Noose Constrictor. Get the trade going, because we're going to have Delirium soon. So I think I need to set up the spider spawning right now. And I feel like we're actually going to bind the 6/4 and just block the Wretched Griff with spiders. And we have the board state under control. If I can lock down their 6/4, and then we just try to get Bruna mana or Delirium with a bunch of spiders. Yeah, maybe I should have sent the attack in, because if they go ahead and spend Constrictor plus Spear of the Hunt to trade into Reaper, I'd get another Spider as well. Maybe I should have sent in Reaper. pretty close either way. Because again, if we hit Delirium on this thing, very, very nice. Alright, hit a Dawngryph. Just need to bind a 6/4. I mean, I suppose I can... Spider Spawning is such a sick card, because I can just block a 6/4 with a 4/5 and a 1/2. Or not even a 4/5 and a 1/2, just a 4/5. I don't even need the spiders to do that. Probably do just keep playing creatures then, play Provisioner or something. No humans to buff, but whatever. I think Dawngryph is very good against the 3/4 flyer and the 2/2 reach. Make sure I've got all the blockers I need on the ground to hit my next 2 lands. Exultant's Cultist. 2/2 that draws a card when it dies. Here's 1 more land. We are now 1 mana away from Bruna. Got no humans or angels in the graveyard for Bruna's cast ability, but she's still going to be a 5/7 flying vigilance, so still going to be good. And I guess since I don't have to bind the Abundant Maw, I could just bind the Wretched Gryph here. Then they could block with Noose Constrictor and discard a card to beat the Reaper, or I could sack a land pre-combat, except that I'm not going to play Bruna and start hitting them for 5 in the sky each turn. I feel like the trade into Noose Constrictor is not terrible, because again, any mana, and I can... Any mana, and then Bruna's going to reanimate Reaper of Flight now. And if I don't get to reanimate the Reaper of Flight, I still get to start attacking with the Dawngryph every turn instead of the Reaper. If they go for the Noose Constrictor trade here. Okay, they are going to go for the Noose Constrictor trade. So now we do have an Angel Engraved to pick up with Bruna. We've got their 1 reach creature out of the way, so we can keep chipping in with Dawngryph. This seems very reasonable. Oh my god. Alright, Travel Preparations is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Such a magic card. I'm just gonna buff up multiple spiders and make it like impossible for them to get in. But the main thing, obviously, just double buffing the flyer. Shrill Howler. That could theoretically get in if they can get rid of my 4/5. Because I can only block that with creatures with power 3 or greater. I do have a lot of those now, though. I've got a Provisioner, Thornhide Wolves, and now a Briarbridge Patrol as well. The really nice thing about this position is just every single card in our deck is a good draw. Because we have enough mana to play anything. And if I hit another land, then I have the mana to play Bruna. So it's like impossible for us to draw dead right now. They're down to 11, and they're just going to scoop them up there. All right, going to start this round off with a Game 1 victory again. Their deck seems like it's going to be better at grinding out a long game, even if they're on the play, like especially if they're on the play. So even if I swap over to the grindier graveyard focus deck, I feel like they just have stronger, bigger late game stuff with Abundant Maw, Wretched Gryph, Ovenwald Abomination, like a lot of big late game stuff, Macabre Waltz for a reanimation spell there. So I think I just stick to an aggressive build here rather than trying to build a deck that grinds it out better, because then I'm just less likely to pressure them in the early game and still still just don't have that many more ways to win late. Divine Reckoning's horrible in this matchup. They're just going to keep an 8-6 while I keep a 3-3 flyer or something. Or not an 8-6, a 6-4. Could do some minor changes, I guess. Maybe putting like Kindly Stranger and Terrarian in over Travel Preps or something. But I'm pretty happy with this build for game 2. Could cut a land on the draw, but again, Bruna's like our best card for the matchup, and I would very much like to be able to hit 7 mana anytime that we hit a Bruna. Super reasonable opening hand. We only have the Gnarlwood Dryad for early game, but we've got really good late game stuff with a Griff's Boon to put on a Thornhide Wolf, so we can just build our own gigantic flying threat. Yeah, I'm gonna send it in. They're gonna hit me for 2 here. It's not the best damage trade, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be on the aggro no matter what, and they would have just rabid bit it if I held it up as a blocker, so that feels pretty good. This only buffs other creatures we control, so if I play Shieldmate, all they have to do to have Noose Constrictor beat Shieldmate is discard 1 card. So I would rather play Byway Courier, because they need to discard 2 cards to beat it, and even if they do, that's a very good value swing for us, because they discard 2 and we get a clue to draw 1. So, put them down 2 cards here potentially. Or just trade. Trading is also fine. There's a Briar Bridge Patrol from them. There's a Travel Prep. That could be big in the future. For now, I think I play a 2-3. Turn into a 3-3 flyer with Griff's Boon next turn. Yeah, next turn we can play Griff's Boon and sack the clue to draw a card. So take 3 down to 15. No plays from them. See if they have instant speed removal here. Ooh, hit another land. That actually doesn't change anything because it's not a Plains. If it was a Plains, that would have been phenomenal because then I could play Dawngryff and Griff's Boon still. But since it's not a Plains, my only options are Travel Prep sack the clue or just Griff's Boon sack the clue, and I think Griff's Boon's just better. Yeah, with 1 creature on the board right now. I could also just play the Dawngryff and not sack the clue. But I think I do need to sack it here. Go for land number 5. Devilthorn Fox? That's actually just better than playing Griff's Boon. Trading a... Oh, god dang it. That was the rare that we could have played around. Trading the 3-1 into a 3-3 is pretty great. I like getting that on the board. Got the dead weight for that. They are down to 2 cards, but we're down to 11 to 9 life. Bad at math again. 4-5 feels very good on the board. So let's shove it down and hope they ran out of removal by now. They rabid bit and dead weight so far. Geralf's Masterpiece. Okay, well, we found their bomb rare, and that is not particularly beatable without removal. It's going to be a 7-7 if they empty their hand. Yeah, that's... We just straight up just need removal in our hand or we die to that. And we do not have removal in our hand, so you do the math there. With Griff's Boon and some flyers here, I can stack up enough power in the sky to go for a double block to kill it soon. Strength of Arms also assists in that. I could Griff's Boon Thornhide Wolves, and I have a 5-5 Strength of Arms, make it a 7-7, go for a trade. Or I could take 1 hit, play a Dawngryff and Travel Prep for now, make a really large board and go for a trade on it later. think I have to try to set up for the 2-turn kill on it. I died a 1 removal spell either way. And this is just going to give me a significantly better board state after killing it. Because Griff Spoon is +1/+0, so it would be a 7/7 trading for a 7/7 next turn. If they can play that last card in their hand, which they probably can. Maybe it's just another land and they couldn't play it. Oh my god, Rabid Bite off the top is so good. I don't have the mana to play another creature and play Rabid Bite. That is not phenomenal. But 100% I have to just play Rabid Bite here. Still dead to removal. Still very dead to removal. I guess if the last card in their hand's an instant, this is going to be bad, but they didn't play anything there, so it feels most likely it's another land. And they can't respond? Yeah, it's another land, they can't respond. They're at 19 life. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Attack for 11 with Griff Spoon here. I think I'd rather hold up Strength of Arms, just in case that could stop a removal spell. And then it's possible we can find lethal out of nowhere after playing a Reaper of Flight, because then we have 7 flying power. Putting a Griff Spoon on Thornhide Wolves would make it 14 flying power. This is pretty suspicious. Let's just see how big they can make that. Maybe they're just trying to get a clue. I have to block or I'm dead. Yeah, maybe it's just sack the clue and then return the masterpiece to the board tapped. By having 3 cards in hand. It's instant speed, isn't it? Yeah, it's instant speed. That's what it is. Okay. There's a Bruna coming up. If I Griff Spoon the Thornhide Wolves, I have a 7/7 flyer. I can block their masterpiece and play a Strength of Arms to beat their 7/7 flyer. I can't afford to attack at all because they're going to crack back with 2 creatures. If I don't Griff Spoon here, if I play Reaper of Flight instead, I could double block Geralf's masterpiece and lose both of my flyers to kill it. Which I think is worse than trying to just kill it with a combat trick, even though it's riskier. It's only a tiny bit riskier. The reason it's a tiny bit riskier is because this is going to die to them having a removal spell to kill one of my 2 creatures. But if I played Reaper, if they don't have a removal spell and I'm just forced to double trade, I'm just putting myself in a losing position. And if they do have a removal spell, while I get to live 1 turn longer, I live a turn longer in an unwinnable board state. Oh no. Wow, their deck is bomby. Now we need to just find a mountain of creatures to be able to block, and I can only play 1 creature per turn right now. Even if I top deck the cheapest creature in my deck, I only have enough mana to play 1 because my other creatures are 5 and 7 mana, so we're just dead to the wide board state. Guess not quite. I could block everything but the zombie and go to 1 life. But I can't attack with anybody or I'm dead. Oh, it's when anybody casts a spell. Yeah, no, I'm dead. Because I can't play another creature without giving them another zombie. Oh my god, this deck is explosive. We have no shot in a long game. We're definitely not swapping to the 3-color version. I think we're just running it back with the aggro again. This game was closer than it looked, because we did have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 power in the sky after a Strength of Arms. So if we ever stabilized enough to be able to hit them with 1 flyer for 1 turn, we could have found a lethal attack out of nowhere later, potentially. Their deck is just way too explosive. We never got in a position where we were able to chip in with 1 flyer. I think even if I didn't run into their 3 mana, 3/3 flash creature, we wouldn't have been in that position. But that was like the one line that could have changed the game a bit. if I played around the 3-mana 3/3 flash, so we'll definitely make sure to keep that in mind and do it for the last game, but just being on the play is certainly going to be helpful for the final game of round 2 here. Try to get the aggro going out here. That is unkeepable. Yeah, that's unkeepable on the play. That is really slow for on the play. Courier gives us a clue. Patrol gives us a clue, though, so it can help hit the 7 mana for Bruna. This isn't really how I want to be playing on the play here, but the hand has a game plan, even if it's a slow game plan. I know we lose most long games against this deck, but I feel like having a slow game plan is probably better than dropping all the way down to a 5-card hand on the play. It's not ideal, but I think it's better than the alternative of just being down 2 cards from the start of the game with a 5-card hand. Alright, fingers are definitely crossed here, because if we lose 2 rounds of Magic, that is when we are out of contention for the Arena Open Day 2 Draft 2. So if we lose this game, we're just done. We're out of it. And if we lose any future rounds, we're also out of it. So they've got a Gnarlwood Dryad into a Noose Constrictor. Wow, they've got the aggro curve here. Got the second white source for the Bruna. Got the Byway Courier to give us a clue and trade off into one of their early aggro threats. They have full Sultai and they have the Rabid Bite. Let's get a clue token here. Guardian of Pilgrims would rather play a Patrol to get another clue token and just be a larger blocker in general. Wretched Gryff in the sky. You get a 3/4 flyer, draw a card. Don't think I trade into the 1/1. I've got a 2/2 to do that soon. Okay, that is the 7 mana we need to play Bruna. Just need to wait 2 turns to play these lands out. Again, not going to block a 1/1 Death Touch with a 3/3, so we'll send in the 4/4. Get our value off of the Guardian of Pilgrims Enter the Battlefield effect. Here's Obsessive Skinner from our opponent, buff up the Wretched Gryff, hit us for 4. Hit a Travel Prep here. Can get some pretty big attacks in, but we're really dying in the sky. We're like significantly dying in the sky. Actually can't even get very big attacks in because they can just Death Touch the Patrol down, but I can make Guardian of Pilgrims really big, I guess. Might even be better to hold on to it for now because I don't really think it changes the position on board at all. So I'm going to hold on to it for now. Down to 7. We just have to hope they don't have removal this game. They have already used 1 Rabid Bite. They're down 1 removal spell, but there's another 2/1 Wretched Gryff, drawing them another card. Here's our 2/1 Bruna. Get our Byway Courier back and have our flying blocker on the board. And they immediately have the removal, and we're just dead in the sky. Alright. Not a lot we could have done this draft. I don't think we ended up in maybe the strongest archetype in the draft pod. If I committed to green-white aggro earlier, our deck could have been a little bit stronger. Or if I fully committed to the grindier Delirium deck, it could have been a little stronger. but I think we were just in a really tough draft pod in general. I don't think there was one really open archetype, and I think the card quality was quite low all around. Where like no archetype was just getting all of the incredible playables or anything. So I think for the draft pod we were in, this deck's pretty decent, pretty average stuff. Had some rough games there. We got a win in every round that we lost. Made it as close as possible there. Definitely some beats there. Both of our opponents' decks were significantly stronger. More explosive as well, more bombs. Rough matchups for sure. So that does it for our contention for the Arena Open Day 2 draft number 2, which is pretty rough, but we still get to play some more games. We get to play all 4 rounds no matter what happens, and these next 2 games will be competing to get potentially some extra gems out of the event. Again, pretty happy to at least have made it to day 2, got to play another draft of the pretty sweet format, and again, no matter what happens, we are leaving with more gems than it took to enter. Spent 5,000 gems to do the Arena Open Day 1, got 5,000 gems back already. We're going to be up 500 gems even if I lose the next 2 rounds. But now that it's only gems on the line, we're going to be playing purely for fun. I can chill a bit, get very casual about it, not really care too much how I play or sideboard from this point on. Again, I think the biggest thing we could have changed was how we drafted. I don't think there was really much of anything we could have done gameplay-wise or sideboarding-wise in those matchups that could have translated into victories with just the ways that we ended up drawing and the decks that we ended up playing against. I don't think there's much we could do gameplay-wise. But maybe there was a better deck in the draft pod. I don't think there was a significantly better deck, but there might have been a deck that could have gotten at least a little bit of an edge. Really rough to play against a million copies of 3-Bit Inspector. That card is absurd. We saw 0 copies in our draft pod. But that would have been very sweet for going for the green-white aggro build we ended up with, just by being so deep into green and taking Sigarda. And some super late travel preps. I kind of like dropping the 4-drop here while we've got the mana dork around. Then if I hit a land next turn, we can use 5 mana next turn, either by playing Courier and Rabid Bite or just the Reaper of Flight. Can really utilize the mana dork to its best state of efficiency. We didn't hit a land this turn, which means we have 4 mana to play around with, so I can play Dryad and Courier. Feels like what I want to do. Purge the Courier. Seems good. Trade the Death Toucher into the Kindly Stranger, that's fine. Griff's Boon as the draw. Can play Guardian plus Griff's Boon. A Griff's Booned Fiend Hunter is kind of like a massive threat. They're down to 3 power on the board, so we are still racing. Well, Yana's Elite. Alright, doesn't do too much here. Just a 2-2 for 3. I guess it turns into a 3-3 if I take this trade. Can go ahead and play Reaper Flight and just stay massively aggressive in the sky. Seems cool to me. We're threatening lethal in the sky this turn, and even if they play a flying blocker, we can tap it down. If they play 2 flying blockers, we can kill one and tap the other one down. They just need removal there straight up, and they don't have the removal. I'm just going to ready up because there's basically nothing on the line here at this point. It's like 2,000 gems maximum. So I'm just going to boot right into game 2. Alright. If we draw another cheap creature, this is going to be one of our best travel prep hands. But we could wait on it as well and we'll still be solid. Well, I've got nothing else to play here, so might as well make the scariest Timber Shredder you've ever seen. 2 mana, 5/2 flying, let's go. I guess 3 mana, because we did spend 1 on the Griff's Boon. Alright, if they don't play 2 spells here, or a removal spell, they're just gonna die to 1 Timber Shredder. Which is absolutely hilarious. Okay, they're down to 10. Timber Shredder has single-handedly halved their life total. There's a Drog Skull Shieldmate, sure, 1 blocker on the ground. Does not block a Timber Shredder in this guy. There's a Kindly Stranger, but they don't have Delirium. I'm going to travel prep pre-combat to get extra damage in here, but I don't want to flash it back or I'm going to flip the Timber Shredder. They're down to 4 and then we just play Shieldmate during their turn. To use all of our mana and not play 2 spells in 1 turn. Subjugator Angel. That is enough to where they'll survive barely. Because they can block Timber Shredder now. But that's 3 toughness against 6 power? Wait, no, we still just trample over for lethal because the Timber Shredder has trample. That's 7 power against 3 toughness. Which means we trample for 4. Oh my god. Well, that was disgusting. That was the quickest 2-0 in that round. We are 1-2 now, heading into round 4, the final boss. To see if we get at least a 2-2 average run out of the event, or the 1-3 just absolute pity gems there. Either way, we're leaving with 1,500 gems, so hey, we got an extra premier draft out of this Arena Open Day 2. Yep, and the next win is just for another 1,000 gems. Not the biggest deal if we can't get that next win, but either way, final game, let's head into round 4. Here we are for round 4, opponent is on the play. But a pretty keepable hand here. We've got a Deathcap Cultivator and Guardian of Pilgrims we can play off of the 2 mana we have in hand. If we draw a 3rd land, we can play everything in the hand except the Thornhide Wolves. And of course, if we can keep the Cultivator on board, we can cast more spells off of that. I think I will, against green-blue, I'll run out Cultivator here. Against like red and black I might not, because they could have Dead Weights, Galvanic Bombardments, all kinds of cheap 1 mana removal spells, but in green-blue it could really just be like Rabid Bite to kill Cultivator immediately. And they clearly did not have that. If I want to use all 4 of my mana, the only way to do that is to play Intrepid Provisioner. Isn't the greatest when my human's going to be tapped anyway. I could just hit them for 2 and then play Shieldmate, that's fine. I don't have double white here, so I can't play like Shieldmate Griff's Boon, Moonsilver Griff's Boon, any combination of the white spells. I can only play 1 of them. I think I'll just hit for 2 and play the Shieldmate. Not getting any value off of it out of combat, but it doesn't look like we're going to be getting into too many combat positions where that's going to be that valuable here. They're on a Sultai deck, which means they're probably slower. They're just going to play little dorks like Fogwalker early that aren't getting into combat much, and then probably some really big things later that +0/+1 is not going to change anything against. They're just going to pass turn. Alright, here's Shieldmate. Do not hit another land, so I can't play Provisioner to buff the Cultivator and get any damage in. Could bind the Fogwalker in Moonsilver, or I could Griff's Boon something. I could boon the Shieldmate and still have Byway Courier, and Griff's Boon is a very expendable card because it can always come back from the grave, so pretty nice to just use it early and get your attacks in while you can. So we'll slam down that Griff's Boon and play the Byway Courier. Opponent does go for the Forbidden Alchemy, very nice graveyard filling spell. Lets them draw whatever they want out of the top 4 and put the rest into the graveyard. They milled a Rise from the Grave and a bunch of lands. Yeah. Drew something else. They've got 6 mana up now. The Mind Rack Demon is the play. They do a full Delirium for that card. So it will not shoot them in the face, but if we bind it by Moonsilver, it still can't attack or block, which is fine. I think that's what we'll do, and we'll just keep chipping at them in the sky. They do have the ability to flip their Ovenwald Captive pretty quickly, which is going to be threatening. It'll be a 4/6. Forbidden Alchemy is the only instant in their graveyard right now, so if they recast Forbidden Alchemy and don't play another instant, they could end up actually taking damage from Mind Rack Demon. Deals 4 damage to them during their upkeep if they don't have Delirium. Alright, they're just going to transform the... I was going to say translate. They're just going to translate the Ovenwald Captive into English, and we'll take 4 damage to the face. Spider spawning, that is pretty bad here. Could just provision or buff the courier, send in the squad. I think that's what I'll do. They're going to go for the chump with the Fog Walker, fair enough. We're racing. They're at 9, we're at 15, but they're dealing 4 to us every turn. We're dealing 3 to them every turn. So we kill them in 3 turns, they kill us in 4. Wretched Griff changes that significantly, because now they have a 3/4 flyer to block our flyer, and also to attack us with, so we are no longer attacking them at all. Now they are just firmly in the lead on board. Got a decently wide board state. If I can get some trades, we can have this spider spawning really pop off later. It's going to have to be a lot later, though, because we're still not hitting lands. We just play Dawn Griff so that I have enough flying power to double block the Griff unless they play anything special. Seems fine. It seems better on the board than just another 3/3 on the ground. Recast Forbidden Alchemy. Ooh, they milled a Silent Departure. And now they've basically drew 2 cards off the Forbidden Alchemy. They have a 5 mana bounce spell and whatever they put in their hand. Groundskeeper. Pick up a bunch of basic lands at this point. So if they get anything in their deck that they discard cards for value, they'll have an endless supply of basic lands to discard. Alright, past the turn, there is land number 4, so we have 5 mana set up now. Let's spider spawning for 0. I'm tempted, that would be hilarious, just send a message. Again, because it's just a 1000 gem game, it's not that important. I'm almost definitely just supposed to play Thornhide Wolves. I mean, I'm definitely not supposed to spider spawning for 0, but the temptation is real. Yeah, let's just play a Thornhide Wolves. Yeah, luckily our board state is wide enough. They haven't really been able to attack in. So we're just hanging out with them. The Sultai Delirium deck, though, like, we have to assume they have a much stronger late game than us, so we need to try our best to find a way to chip in as quickly as possible, give them less time to find big late game plays, but they're already down to 12 cards in their library, so they haven't already drawn their best bombs. They are getting incredibly close. We know they have a Mind Rack Demon. We already dealt with that. They could have ways to put it back in their hand. Alright, bounce the Dawngrith. Knot of the Bone, gain 4. Down to 11 cards in their deck, and Knot of the Bone only gains 4. Seems like a little bit of a low creature count for a Knot of the Bone deck, but it could be that they just have like 8 more creatures left in those 11 cards. Rise from the Tides. So they're just full on. They're on the Knot of the Bone Rise from the Tides deck, where they want a bunch of instant sorceries and a bunch of creatures in grave. Alright. They went for it. And it's gonna get us here. But I do get to attack them with pretty much everything. They can block the 4/5 and a 3/2, take 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Nah, because then I just die on the crackback. 6 mana up now. I can play Dawngrith and Guardian of Pilgrims. I think I can send in the Shieldmate. Oh, I don't have double white still. I can't do what I wanted to do. Can only play 1 spell this turn. Attack for 12 on the ground, 3 in the sky. Need 3 blockers on the ground and 1 in the sky to survive. 3 blockers on the ground means I take 10 on the ground. 1 in the sky means I take 0 in the sky. I cannot really attack. Yeah, I guess I just play Dawngrith so I can potentially double block. But they can just Silent Departure again. They've got 3 copies of that? No, they've got 2 copies. They just hard cast the front half last turn. We're looking pretty dead. They have like a million cards to play around with. Thanks to all the flashback. Imprison the Wolves in the Moon. Departure the Courier. Departure the Shieldmate, and we're dead. We're technically not dead yet. But we're like 1 damage from dead. Yeah, I go to 3. Well, there's my second white source. I can play 2 spells this turn now, but cannot survive. Spider spawning, maybe. It's spider spawning, play a 2/2, so I could play 3 blockers that turn. Have 4 blockers total. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, I'd be dead. Because they could still attack with everybody. Hit me with a 1/1 and a 2/2. Yep, and that's the most blockers I could do is Spider Spawning plus Guardian of Pilgrims. Yeah, we were done on board. Alright. Let's go for game 2 of the final round. Alright, here we are on the play for game 2 of the final round. Got Dryad into Shieldmate, with a Strength of Arms for a trick and a Travel Prep to buff the board. Seems aggro. I like it. I like it a lot for this matchup. Opponent starts with turn 1 Terrarian tapped. We draw a Bound by Moonsilver. So we have a removal spell at the ready. Open hit a land here in our first 2 draw steps so we can play Shieldmate on 3. There's Obsessive Skinner from our opponent. They probably want to just trade that off into one of these immediately where Strength Arms will be valuable. Well, now Shieldmate will just be incredible. Oh wait, no it won't, because it puts a counter on itself. I'm a doofus. So yeah, then we do have to Strength of Arms, and then just Travel Prep these 2 up. So I should have Travel Prepped pre-combat. I would have hit them for 1 more damage, and still gotten the block off, most likely. Alright, Weirding Wood, that is not a creature to put on the board, so we're going to hit for 4 here. Don't have the mana to travel prep and play the shield mate, so I'll just play the shield mate. Mind Rack Demon without Delirium is pretty bold, but they do have an artifact to sack at least. We'll see what they mill. Creature, instant sorcery land. Wow. Well, that was an excellent mill for them. Now they don't even have to sack Terrarium to not take damage. Well, we obviously bind that by Moonsilver. Put them down to 6 life and pass the turn. If they didn't hit Delirium there, they would be basically dead. They'd be down to 2 now. They're probably still basically dead if they have to sacrifice a clue here, because that is 2 mana spent not changing the board state. They've got 4 mana up still, though. Do they have impactful enough spells at 4 mana to stabilize? Gonna be a flash creature. I don't remember their flash stuff well enough. Well, we don't really have an option if we draw a forest, we just attack with everybody. Crack the Terrarium, get some mana, and draw a card at instant speed. Knot of the Bone to gain 4. Now they're down to 2. They can Knot of the Bone again to gain another 4. Be at 6. Sure. Grapple with the past. Mill 3, pick up a creature. They have a blocker. Choose a Fog Walker, which taps down one of our dorks. And they have the mana up to recast the Knot of the Bone. So they're going to go up to 6 and then take a couple damage here. They'll be at 4 and we'll kill the Fog Walker. What's going on board? Unless they have another spell to play instead of the Knot of the Bone. They certainly do. They have the Drag Under to bounce the Dryad. Draw us a card. That was monumentally bold of them. Because then they die to us top decking removal. I guess they were probably already dead to top deck removal because we attack for 5, they would gain 4. No, they would have survived top deck removal if they didn't do that. Alright, well. They get their chump. They're probably going to try to Silent Departure their own Mind Rack Demon eventually, if they can afford to. I could sack a land just to up the Delirium on the Dryads. Sack a land to this Bound by Moonsilver. No creatures engraved, so if I get a creature land enchantment engraved, they're Deliriumed up. I don't think that's worth it. It would make it so if they end up like bouncing their Mind Rack Demon and our bound ends in our grave, and they also end up killing one of our creatures, then we'll have Delirium. I mean, maybe. Oh my god, we're so dead. They have a Docent of Perfection they somehow didn't draw game 1, and we're drawing exclusively lands. Yeah, I mean, this is a game for 1,000 gems. I could just scoop it up here, but I'll just pretend it's a Premier Draft. I don't tend to scoop Premier Drafts, so I'll just keep going. We'll keep going. Oh my god, and now Traverse the Ulvenwald gets to search for anything because they have the Delirium on it. Yeah, these were some far more explosive decks than we could have created in our draft pod. I think the biggest thing that we missed out on in our draft pod was I think I took removal. I think I took removal pretty low. We could have had multiple Bound by Moonsilvers. That was the best thing that we really missed out on. And that would have helped the deck considerably. That's the biggest, like, obvious way things could have changed. Had a couple more copies of Bound by Moonsilver. But, we definitely didn't have an opportunity to be a Docent of Perfection deck. Or a Mind Rack Demon deck. We had an opportunity to be a Sigarda deck, and we took it. Alright, yeah, I mean, this game's not going anywhere. Scoop it up. We'll give them their 1,000 gems. Keep our 1,500. Alright, well, that is going to end the event. Let's do a quick post-mortem here. I don't really care how well I played Game 3 and Game 4 because they didn't really matter at all. But Game 1 and Game 2, the rounds that we lost that took us out of contention for the Arena Open Day 2 draft number 2, just looking back and thinking if there was anything I could have done gameplay-wise or sideboarding-wise, and I really don't think there was. I think we just played against decks that were just better than ours. They were just more consistent or had higher card quality in general from their draft pods. Played against so many copies of Thraben Inspector, that was pretty wild. Yeah, the black-white deck that just had like 2 or 3 Thraben Inspectors and a ton of removal was just way, way higher card quality than our deck. We just couldn't really compete there. Yeah, so I don't think there was much we could do in those games, gameplay-wise or sideboarding-wise. I think those were always going to be losses. Biggest thing that we can look back on today, with no very obvious glaring gameplay errors or anything, would be the drafting process. And the biggest thing we can learn from there is probably just going back to more bread and butter drafting, of just taking removal over pretty much everything. Because while we did end up with some removal, we have Rabid Bite, we have Bound by Moonsilver, we were constantly in positions in the games that we lost and the games that we won where the best cards that we could hit would be our Bound by Moonsilvers. And I did have like 2 other opportunities to pick up an extra copy of Bound by Moonsilver in the draft, and I did not take them. I think that was the worst thing about like upping the quality of this deck. I don't remember what I took over the Bound by Moonsilvers. I think I was still dancing with the potential multicolored Delirium decks. I don't think we ended up seeing any super tremendously powerful reasons to be in those Delirium strategies, so maybe if I had committed more to green-white earlier, we could have had more valuable cards. But again, I think the card quality in the draft pod in general was pretty low. It was very competitive, and all the good stuff was getting scooped up real fast. So I think it was pretty decent to end up where we did, but maybe fully committing to Delirium or fully committing to green-white earlier in the draft would up the card quality at least a little bit, but we ended up with a very mediocre, very average deck that was kind of in between. Obviously, in hindsight, being focused more on one or the other ups the card quality a little bit, but not dramatically. I think the biggest thing looking back was taking those opportunities to grab more Bound by Moonsilver. Again, I don't remember what I took over them, but I can't imagine they would have been that much better than Bound by Moonsilver, because we found in the games that we were playing that Bound by Moonsilver was just phenomenal. Can't be massively unhappy with that. We made it into day 2 off of just 1 run, so we are up in gems, and we won a game in every round that mattered. So we didn't just go 0-2-0-2 and just get completely pummeled. We won a game in those losing games as well. I don't think I won a game in round 4, but that didn't really matter. I was already just out of contention for day 2. So overall, had a fun time. Definitely nice to draft some more Shadows over Innistrad competitively, but that is going to end the Arena Open Day 2 Draft 1 event, and that's going to end the Arena Open Day 2 as a whole for me today, which is unfortunate. Not that sad to not get the thousands of dollars. That would be super great, obviously. That would help pay bills and everything. That'd be phenomenal, but I think it's more sad that I didn't get to at least draft one more time and in the competitive Arena Open event. Even if I didn't end up winning any money in the second draft, it would be nice to have at least made it there. But yeah, played against some better decks, had a pretty mediocre pile, probably didn't draft the best. I don't think, again, we could have had a significantly better deck, but just getting a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a stronger deck, maybe would have given us a better shot in those first 2 rounds, potentially turning those around. I think those first 2 rounds were the rounds that we were most likely to be able to turn into victories there, because we had close games in some wins and losses there, where it could have just as easily been 2-1, 2-1, 2-0, and then been 3-1. I think round 4, though, things were not super close because they had some really explosive cards and very consistent survivability. So it is what it is. Don't make it to day 2 draft 2, but still had a very fun time. Great stuff in the Innistrad format. And that'll do it. That is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons very much for supporting the channel, and I'd like to thank you all very much just for watching. If you enjoyed these videos and you'd like to see more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more in your recommended feed. If you're interested in hanging out with me live or supporting the channel through Patreon, you can check out those links in the description below. Other than that, as always, thanks again very much for watching, and I'll see you soon for some more Magic Arena.